What's up, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer 55551, and I am back with a video review. And for this review, we're going to be taking a look at the eShop, Nintendo eShop title, Gunman Clive, C-L-I-V-E, if I'm saying the name correctly though, HD collection for the Nintendo Switch, a HD port of the original version that was released on Nintendo 3DS. It was also ported over to the Wii U, PC and Steam, Android, and ISO devices as well. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage, I'll have a link in the description in this video. When it comes to 2D games, though, I'm always a fan of those type of games, though. Whether it's from platforms to the Metroidvania style type of 2D games to even classic 2D shooters. I remember growing up playing these type of games, though, as well, whether it's games like Contra to even arcade games like, say, Sunset Rider to Metal Slug to even games like Mega Man as well. Those games will always have a place in my heart as a old school gamer, even though they may not, even though I still like 2D platforms a bit more. I always, excuse me, I always enjoy 2D shooters. So it was interesting when this developer, I think it's a Swedish developer. I'm not sure. His name is Bertil Horberg. Again, I apologize for not saying his name correctly. Released a game on the Nintendo 3DS called Gunman Clive. It was basically a Western 2D shooter that basically played homage to classic 2D shooters back in the day. And it had an interesting art style, gameplay, and music with it, and it was certainly a lot of fun. He also released a sequel for the 3DS as well, Gunman Clive 2, and the games got ported over to the Wii U. So it's kind of interesting that he decided to bring these over to the Nintendo Switch, but here they are with the Nintendo Switch, obviously, basically as a way to get people up for his next game, which is supposedly Extermina Force. Apologize, I'm not saying it correctly. But in the meantime, as we wait for his next game, though, he releases this one, Gunman Clive HD Collection. So, is it worth getting? Well, it's going to depend on several factors, but I will say it is a fun classic 2D shooter if you're into those type of games, type of stuff. So why don't we get started with our pros and cons, and we'll start first with the pro. The first one is the gameplay. As I mentioned before, this game plays like a classic 2D shooter. It basically feels like a combination of games like, say, Contra, Mega Man, Metal Slug, and in some degree a little bit of Konami's classic arcade game Sunset Riders thrown into it, though. It follows the tried and true 2D shooter mixed with platform in it, though, so if you play those type of games, you'll feel right at home. The game can be a little bit difficult at times, though, but luckily you do have infinite amount of lives, so you can at least try again and again if you want to. So if you're into those classic 2D style gameplay, though, or 2D shooter style gameplay, then this game will probably be for you. And the last thing I do want to talk about is the visuals and the music. I really do enjoy the music in this game. I like that Western look to it, though, especially with both the first and the second Gunman Clive, especially when you go into sort of like the samurai part and, like the Japanese forest and so forth, to that old style Western kind of feel with the game. And the visuals of the game, both the first and second one, look really impressive. It looks like a hand-drawn 2D shooters. This is, to me, is a good example, not the only game, but a good example of how video games to a certain degree can be an art form in a way, and Gunman Clive is certainly a good example of a video game being an art form. It's not the only example, but certainly one of many examples indeed. So visually and music wise, it's really good. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we're going to get to part 2, the cons, what I don't like about this game. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video review of Gunman Clive HD collection for the Nintendo Switch. So now that I gave you my pros, why don't we get started with the cons? And for the cons, just like the pros, I only have 2 cons that I could really think of. We'll start with the first one. This one has to do with Gunman Clive 2. When playing the game, though, at certain points of the game goes into a 3D mode where it plays sort of like if you were to play a game like, say, Star Fox or Afterburner in a way, though. And the 3D shooting levels, or the on-rail or 3D shooting levels are fun, but they can be kind of difficult at times as well. I mean, piloting one of the aircrafts in one of the levels, it can be a little bit difficult, and since there's no relic, it can be difficult to know if your shots really hit the enemy or not. The horse riding part, though, is not as bad as the plane one, though. That one's a little bit better, but again, the 3D on-rail shooter parts can be kind of difficult to navigate sometimes. And last but not least, as much as I enjoy the game, it's going to be a hard sell for some people, especially considering this is a port of the 2 Gunman Clive games that came out back when they were originally released on the 3DS, the Wii U, PC and Steam, Android and ISO, basically with all of its content also. If you already play the other versions, unless you absolutely want to get it for the Nintendo Switch, it's going to be the same game no matter what. So unless the Switch is your main console, unless you really want it, unless you really want it, though, it's going to be a hard sell for some people to pick it up or double dip into it again. Not to mention, if you're not really into 2D shooters, then this game will probably not be for you. Another thing to point out, though, is that the game is single player only as far as I'm aware of. There's no 2-player mode, so that might be a bit of a bummer for some people, to be exact. Overall, as a fan of 2D shooters, I definitely enjoy Gunman Clive HD collection, though. It's 2 games into one, and they play like a spiritual successor to classic 2D shooters, whether it's Contra, Mega Man, Metal Slug, Sunset Riders, and so forth. And the music and the visuals of the game are really good. I think the issue might be whether it's worth a double dip or not, and that's really going to depend on whether or not the Switch is like your main console, or if these are the kind of games you're into or not. If you already own it onto another system, then unless you absolutely must have it on your Nintendo Switch, then most likely it could be a skip for some people. However, that said, if you never try these games out and you're a fan of 2D shooters, I do think it's worth taking a look at these games. They play like classic 2D shooters, and they are fun and enjoyable, at least in my book, though. Okay, this concludes this video review of Gunman Clive HD collection for the Nintendo Switch. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Gunman Clive HD collection? Is it worth a double dip again to get from the Nintendo Switch? Is it not worth it? Have you ever played these games before? Do you enjoy the classic 2D shooter type games, or those games don't really interest you in any way? Is it worth just playing it on the 3DS, Wii U, or if you have it on Steam or Android or ISO, or do you think it's worth picking up for the Nintendo Switch? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? Excuse me. As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I hope you hit that like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I do. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You could do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good evening then. Bye!